Part 17. Total ship collapse, reject rocks at the start. Author, Return Captain. Chapter 161. Ha ha ha, Arthur, the humiliation you brought me in the past will be over today. In the sky, the rampant laughter of the Golden Lion echoed. Huge mountain peaks float above Arthur's island. In order to be able to destroy Arthur's island in one fell swoop, the Golden Lion managed to find a mountain twice the size of the mountain. A sword broke off from the root and flew thousands of miles to carry it here. That's the Fleet Admiral Flying Pirate's Golden Lion Shiki. In this sea, the name of the Golden Lion is still very loud. Just listening to the laughter is already recognizable. Carrying such a big mountain to declare war is worthy of the Golden Lion Shiji. Looking at the shadows in the sky, countless exclamations rang out one after another. When their strength reaches their level, it is really easy to destroy a country. Golden Lion Shiji, I didn't expect him to come over to join in the fun. In the harbor, above Arthur's group, an invisible barrier kept the storm out. Arthur looked up at the Golden Lion that was approaching and couldn't help but smile. They're old acquaintances. From the time of Locks to the present day. Captain, do you need me to stop him? Mei Yumao then recommended herself. No, let me do it. Arthur shook his head, stepping on the invisible staircase step by step, towards the sky. The lightning and thunder around him, the wind and rain did not affect him in any way. Daddy, we seem to be a little late. In the distance, the Moby Dick also appeared in the sea. When he learned that the world government had launched a demon-slaying order, Whitebeard rushed over. But looking at the current situation, it seems that it is a little late. Whitebeard stood at the front of the deck, unmoved by the wind and rain. Golden Lion Shiki. Looking at the peaks in the sky walking forward, Whitebeard muttered to himself. Then his gaze fixed on the rising figure. It's not too late, or just right. A faint voice echoed around, and there was a gleam in Whitebeard's clear gaze. Quietly watching, waiting for the next development. In the sky, two figures met. Arthur, let's fight it out. Arthur really didn't understand why the Golden Lion hated him so much. It's just that he initially refused to cooperate with him and destroyed his entire fleet last time. For it. If you think about it this way, it seems that the feud between the two people is not small. Well, if you have to do it as soon as possible, otherwise you won't have a chance. Arthur beckoned, with some impatience in his expression. It's this expression again, do you know that this kind of expression is very annoying? Seeing Arthur's expression, a flash of anger flashed on the Golden Lion's face, and he looked like he was gritting his teeth. A huge rock floated at his feet, allowing his body to continue to levitate in midair. With a wave of his hands, the huge mountain peak smashed straight towards Arthur. Unshackled by the power of the devil fruit, the weight of the mountain peak, and the impact of smashing down, its power is undoubtedly enormous. The strong wind pressure caused the storm to change direction a little. Arthur, are you despising me? Seeing Arthur standing there motionless, the Golden Lion roared again. Because of the anger, the veins on his forehead were exposed. Do you think the lion will do his best because of the rabbit's revenge? A smile tugged at Arthur's lips as he continued. No, he won't. Because all it takes is a light blow. Weak rabbits will open their stomachs. Arthur stretched out his index finger and tapped it lightly. The oncoming huge mountain peak came to an abrupt end. Without warning, it stopped in mid-air. Space freezes. Such a miraculous skill is really useless. Now you understand, right? The gap between us will not change because of your anger. Golden Lion Shiki. I couldn't hear the slightest fluctuation, and the indifferent tone echoed in the sky. For a moment, the thunder in the sky had to be avoided under this sound. I caught it so easily. Marco looked up incredulously. I know he's strong, but he's a bit outrageous, Daddy. Whitebeard's face also showed a look of surprise. Put yourself in their shoes. If he faced such a huge mountain, he would probably only be able to use brute force to split it. But Arthur is so understated, lifting as lightly. Strong, really too strong. The three little ones of the Navy also saw the scene and were shocked for a while. Where did the Warring States general go? The yellow ape's gaze swept around, but he didn't find the figure of the Warring States. Report to Lieutenant General Polisalino, the Sengoku general has received an order from the Air Marshal, and is now in the cabin. A Navy officer next to him immediately reported loudly. I see. The yellow ape nodded unconcernedly, but once again turned his gaze to the sky. I thought that the arrival of the Golden Lion would be inseparable from Arthur, but now it seems that their expectations are going to be disappointed. It can't be. Seeing Arthur block his attack so easily, the Golden Lion's face was full of disbelief. Draw the two famous swords at your waist. Sakura Ten and Wood Wither. Brush. The two sword chi swept across the sky, and the dark clouds in the sky were all split, revealing the sun that had been lost for a long time. Gallop towards Arthur. However, the sword chi, which was extremely sharp enough to cross in all directions, seemed to be blocked by an invisible force when it hit the mountain peak. There is no point in moving forward. What's going on? There are too many times to surprise the Golden Lion today. Even if Arthur blocked his attack, this mountain that could be easily split before could not be shaken this time. The sword chi gradually dissipated in mid-air, and finally disappeared completely, leaving only the incredible face of the Golden Lion. I can't figure it out, it's simple. But I won't tell you. Leave your doubts and go to hell and repent. Arthur's fingers moved slightly, and cracks appeared on the surface of the mountain peak in front of him. Gradually, it shattered into pieces and fell from the sky. In the midst of the rocks, Arthur walked slowly towards the Golden Lion. No, absolutely impossible, the gap between us can't be that big. Even if it's as strong as Locke's, I can touch it now. The long golden hair flew in the air, and the Golden Lion seemed to be crazy. The twin swords are swung continuously. One after another, sword chi that spanned thousands of miles burst out. Under the impact, the surrounding storm was not visible in the slightest. However, each sword chi was approaching Arthur's time. The space in front of him suddenly distorted. The small black hole sucked countless sword chi into it. Although the sword chi was strong, it could not withstand the tearing force of the space. Step by step, Arthur came to the Golden Lion and pointed his index finger on his forehead. It's like a crazy Golden Lion that came to an abrupt end at this moment. You know what? Under 10,000 times gravity, even light will be engulfed in it. This was the last word the Golden Lion heard. In mid-air, a huge black hole appeared in front of Arthur. Engulfed the Golden Lion in it. The deep darkness seems to suck the soul into it. Because this plot will take a big turn. So it's a bit of a stuck plot. I want to completely bring the power of Honkai into the world of pirates, upgrade those navies, and by the way, take out Otto and whip the corpse. I didn't want the Golden Lion to die so quickly all at once, but the repeated appearance was quite annoying, so I let him end it. And don't talk about gravity anymore. Size. I 1/4 per thousand. Total ship collapse, reject rocks at the start. Author, Return Captain. Chapter 162. In the sky, a figure stood tall. In front of him, the massive black hole shrank and shrunk, and finally vanished, leaving only nothingness. The Golden Lion, that's it, no. A scene in the sky shook everyone's hearts. The clouds gradually dissipated, and a ray of sunlight shone on Arthur. At this moment, it was like a god. The captain is so handsome. Kiana looked up, little stars in her eyes. Captain, great. Brenya's words were simple and clear, with a faint smile on her face. Rays of sunlight pierced through the dark clouds and shone on everyone's faces in the sea. The warm sunlight seemed to soothe the shock in their hearts a little. Golden Lion. It's worth it? Whitebeard had a solemn face, as if he was seeing off the Golden Lion. The two of them also have some communication with each other, although they are not too familiar, but they can be barely friends. At this moment, the Golden Lion Shiji came to a complete end. The dark clouds in the sky have all dispersed, the sea is gradually returning to calm, and Arthur does not feel too much about the destruction of the Golden Lion. If you don't provoke him, you might be able to live a little longer. Turn around and walk down step by step. However, before he had taken a few steps, the pace of progress came to an abrupt halt. A sound of collapse quietly emanated from the sea. At the same time, Rita, who was waiting for Arthur's return at the port, also felt this familiar breath at the same time. The look of joy was not only somewhat restrained. Rita, do you feel it? Mei Yi, it's the breath of Honkai. Fu Hua, emanating from the sea. Branya, the Honkai index is getting stronger. A few minutes ago, when the Golden Lion arrived, the Warring States Notice received an order from the Steel Skeleton. Sengoku, I already know your situation. There was a sigh from the phone bug. Marshal Sara, I'm really sorry. A defeat is a failure, and Sengoku will not make any excuses. This is to be expected. The words of the Steel Bones made Sengoku startled. Just listen to the voice that continues to come out of the phone bug. Things have finally reached the point of no return. Warring States General, listen carefully to what I have to say next. Steel Bones' tone suddenly became serious. In the deepest part of your ship, there's a huge chest. Open the box, take out the contents, and sink into the sea. Then immediately leave the area. After knowing Cyborg Kong for so long, it was the first time that Sengoku had heard him use such a serious tone. Yes, Marshal Kong. Sengoku didn't hesitate too much, nodded immediately, put away the phone, turned around and entered the cabin. According to what Steel Bones said before, they came all the way to the end of the battleship. The heavy door was opened, and a cold air permeated outward. When did you get an ice house here? A flash of doubt flashed through his mind, and Sengoku saw a huge box in the middle of the ice room. The box is square, and its material is not visible. Opening the box, inside the transparent glass cover, the purple crystals shimmered faintly. Are you going to throw this into the ocean? Although these instructions were strange, Sengoku did not hesitate too much. Holding the glass cover more than half a meter high in both hands, he walked out slowly. When I came outside, I saw the scene where Arthur killed the Golden Lion. Already surprised, he threw the thing in his hand directly into the sea. All the warships, return at once with all your might. The order of the new arrival was quickly transmitted to the various warships through the phone bug. The other navies only thought that they were temporarily retreating in the face of Arthur's overwhelming strength, and did not think much about it, and immediately took action. Under the calm wind, the huge battleship turned around neatly and headed for the distance. And in the middle of the sea, the crystals thrown into the sea by Sengoku gradually radiate mysterious power. It attracts a variety of fish and sea kings. For the sea kings, the crystals that gradually drift away seem to have become the most delicious food, competing with each other. However, the breath emanating from the crystal, these sea kings or other creatures inhaled a trace, their eyes gradually turned red, and their whole bodies underwent terrifying mutations. The aura of rage gradually permeated the sea. In mid-air, Arthur's footsteps came to an abrupt halt. The aura of Honkai gradually became rich from the initial indifference. It is emanating from within the sea. A flash of doubt flashed in his eyes as he looked at the battleship that was gradually moving into the distance. These warships were extremely fast, as if they wanted to escape from this land of right and wrong immediately. What is this? I felt an ominous aura. Whitebeard suddenly felt an inexplicable aura enveloping him, which made him feel a little uncomfortable. At this moment, the calm sea suddenly became turbulent. Whoa! Huge creatures burst out of the water. His body is covered in white armor, with sharp claws and sharp teeth. From these mutated creatures, you can still see the shadows of the former sea creatures, such as octopuses, pirates, turtles. Rumble. A wave rises into the sky. A behemoth of several hundred meters appeared in front of everyone's eyes. Is that a sea king? How did it become like this? The creature in front of them was very different from the sea kings they knew. It's not just about appearances. It felt like I had changed into something else. Honkaimon. Arthur looked at the creatures emerging from the sea below, and couldn't help but spat out another name. How is that possible? How can there be a Honkai here? Arthur's gaze flashed with confusion, and he looked again at the battleship that was moving away in the distance. Captain, what are we going to do next? Rita's voice came over the communicator. Destroy all of these Honkai beasts, and you won't be able to get them close to the island. The Honkai beasts below were densely packed, numbering in the thousands. Among them, there are hundreds of heads over 100 meters. Usually, there are no sea kings in the sea area at all, but I didn't expect so many to pop up at once. Yes, Captain. Rita, who was on standby in the harbor, all of them acted at this moment. Arthur looked down from above, and everything was in full view. With a wave of his right hand, an endless cold air burst out. With the island as the center, the churning sea gradually froze, forming a battlefield. These things are really cute, so let me train you well. Kiana directly transformed into the form of the lawgiver of the void, and with a wave of her right hand, the spear of the void behind her shot out. In an instant, it pierced through the 5 newly emerging Honkai beasts. Everyone else attacked in their own way. For a while, the elemental turmoil made the sea area that had just calmed down boil again. It's going to be a while before the next one comes a while. There's no problem with Delissa's words, after all, she's also a mascot-like existence. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Total ship collapse, reject rocks at the start. Author, Return Captain. Chapter 163. Daddy, what are these things? Around the Moby Dick, a massive Honkai beast rushed out of the sea. Wearing a hard armor greatly increases the defense of the whole body, making it difficult for ordinary swords to hurt. When I saw someone, I pounced on it directly. The sparkling teeth send chills through the heart. But the people of the Whitebeard pirates are not weak either. There are not a few people who have devil fruits. Basically, you can protect the perimeter of the ship. That's when it happened. A sea king hundreds of meters away, like a snake, no, it should be called Honkai beast now. Honkai beastman refers to creatures that are infected by Honkai. The bodies of creatures infected by Honkai will undergo mutations, and whether it is strength, speed, or defense, the overall quality will be improved in an all-round way. Honkai beasts generally determine their strength based on their size. The snake-like Honkaimon suddenly burst out of the sea, bared its hideous fangs, and bit at Whitebeard at the front. It doesn't matter what you are, if you dare to make a move on me, then be conscious. Holding it in his hand, he swung it forward. Hit Honkaimon's head accurately. Shocking Fruit's ability is activated. Above the blade, a transparent ball of light enveloped the Honkaimon's head. The power that shattered space made the Honkai beast not have the slightest power to resist. In an instant, he lost his head and fell into the sea again. But just after killing one, another one popped up again. It's as if they can't be killed. And on the ice not far away, everyone showed their top strength. The lawgiver of the void walked forward slowly, the spear of the void behind him swept out from time to time. Everywhere it went, the hard armor of the Honkai beast was like papier-mâché copyright. Bella followed on her left and right, like a loyal guard. The lawgiver of thunder is holding the heavenly death realm judgment, and it is basically one or two swords. The lawgiver of reason rides a small motorcycle, surrounded by a replicated key to truth. Lasers emanated from the key of truth, forming a powerful network of firepower. Seal held a blood-red scythe, and the eyes of the blood abyss were the same. It's like death coming down to the world and harvesting the life around it. And the moon spirit, who also wields a scythe, brings silence to all things wherever it passes. Compared to them, Fu Hua's battle was slightly more difficult. You have to find the power core of the Honkai beast first, and then break it. Overall, despite the sheer number of Honkaimon, the battle was one-sided. Ai-chan, have you found the source of the collapse? In the sky, Arthur sees the big picture. The people around who were originally watching the excitement are all unlucky now. The ship was destroyed and people died without forming an effective resistance. It also paid for their curiosity. Don't worry about Whitebeard, it's no problem to protect yourself. Arthur's attention was all focused on these Honkai beasts. One by one, Honkaimon emerged from the sea. These can't appear out of thin air, there must be a reason. And Arthur guessed that it must have something to do with the navy that left before. Found the captain. A light curtain appeared on the communicator, and a small red dot flickered in the light curtain and gradually sank. Is it in that direction? Arthur stared at an area in the middle of the sea and waved his right hand. The strong gravity formed a pillar of light, causing a passage to appear in the sea. Straight down. The Honkai beast encountered was pierced by gravity, and accurately hit the Honkai crystal, which was still sinking. Under the shroud of gravity, the collapse crystals disappeared between heaven and earth. The source on the screen in front of him vanished. Kiana, Mei, Bronia. Arthur shouted their names one by one. You leave this area first, and I'll bury these Honkai beasts once and for all. Through the exploration just now, Arthur had sensed that there were still countless Honkai beasts running around under the seabed. They fled for nothing, but feared a potential danger to his island. So it's better to destroy all of these Honkai beasts. Hearing Arthur's instructions, Kiana and the others quickly retreated to the island. At this moment, the Whitebeard pirates suddenly felt a force restrain them. The Moby Dick slowly levitates from the sea. Don't struggle, just a while. The faint words echoed in their ears, and then they saw a shocking scene. Under the shadow of Arthur's sight and sight, everything in the sea will be visible. Do you want to keep running? Stretch out your index finger and swipe it in the void. The sea in the distance is divided by an invisible force. The power to manipulate space. Space can be manipulated at will, let alone the sea water attached to it. The sea was split. Marco stared at the scene below with wide eyes. Daddy, it seems to be a bit similar to your abilities. Whitebeard's shock fruit can do the same. It's kind of like. But my attacks are indiscriminate, and this one can be manipulated at will. Which is stronger and which is weak, the superior is judged. With Arthur's movements, with the island as the center, the sea in a radius of hundreds of miles is completely cut off from the outside. Slowly detached from the surface of the sea and levitated. There are so many. Through the transparent water, you can see that within this water, dense Honkai beasts roam. The Honkai on the edge tried to break out, but always ran into an invisible barrier. Hundreds of miles of square water seemed to have been picked up from a perfect puzzle. The huge crater that was hollowed out below, after the surrounding sea water stopped for a second, quickly formed a huge whirlpool and slowly filled it. And in mid-air, the island-like sea water hovered in front of Arthur. Looking at the Honkai beast swimming inside, Arthur's eyes flashed with coldness. Mimic the Star of Eden. 0 power rating a euro like a black hole. A large black hole appeared in front of Arthur, and the surroundings were instantly plunged into darkness. Around the black hole, not even light has a foothold. The black hole engulfed all the seawater that enveloped the Honkai beast, and finally gradually disappeared. After doing all this, Arthur looked in the direction of the battleship's departure. At that moment, Hugh Blyan rose from the island with May and them to Arthur's side. "Captain." The hatch opened, and Rita's voice could be heard from inside the communicator. The figure rose into the air and entered the Hyperion. Suspended in mid-air, Hyperion instantly accelerated, turning into a streamer and disappearing into the sky. "That's it? So gone. What should we do?" Whitebeard looked at the height of tens of meters above the sea and blinked. "I don't just leave them here." A few seconds later, the Moby Dick was suspended in mid-air, as if it had lost its strength to support it. Instantly drops from mid-air like a meteor. That's when they realized that it didn't seem bad to stay on it. As for why Honkaimon doesn't obey the orders of the lawgiver, it's assumed that it has not been approved by Honkai, God. After all, the current lawgivers are not doing things for Honkai. Total ship collapse, reject rocks at the start. Author, Return Captain. Chapter 164. On the sea, more than a dozen warships sailed forward in the shape of arrows. On the deck at this time, the three yellow apes were all surrounded by the warring states. After they left, they saw what was happening in the sea behind them. The shocking scene is still etched in their minds. But then there was confusion about those Honkai beasts. There had never been such a strange creature on the sea. The three of them glanced at each other and at the same time looked at Sengoku. If anyone in the room knew anything, it was this one person. "Warring States General, what's going on with those monsters on the sea?" There was seriousness in the pheasant's tone. The sudden appearance of unknown creatures is naturally worrying. Ordinary sea kings are naturally no threat to those of them who are generals. But the monster that appeared just now had an aura around them that made them feel uncomfortable. Now is not the time to say that. Sengoku was actually a little confused. He just obeyed the order and threw the crystals into the sea. I didn't expect so many terrifying creatures to appear. No wonder Marshal Air asked him to leave the sea quickly. Surely he already knew what was going to happen. Looking into the distance, a meteor rushed towards them at a great speed. When I got closer, I realized that it was a battleship with a white shell. Although the Navy was the first to withdraw, the speed of the Hugh Blyan was not comparable to theirs. It didn't take long to catch up. "It's too foul, it's flying in the sky." The yellow ape's eyes were about to protrude. Hugh Blyan stepped on, the hatch opened, and figures jumped out of it. Enemy attack. The surrounding navies reacted immediately and immediately swarmed up. Rumble. Powerful forces burst out, and those navies flew upside down at an even faster speed. Frozen time capsule. Chill your opponent with a blast wave of cold air from a long distance, freezing wherever it passes. Brush. The huge scythe was slashed halfway through, and Rita had a faint smile on her face. Rita won't let you disturb the captain. And at this moment, the yellow ape's whole body was photonized. Heavenly Cloud Sword. In mid-air, he condenses photons in his hand and forms a sword of light as a weapon. And in front of him, the spear of Yakan was ready to fire. Arthur landed on the deck without stopping, and walked straight towards the warring states. The dog bites the red lotus. Akainu is also unwilling to be lonely. The arm is lavaed, and the lava arm is transformed into the shape of a dog's head and the lava limb is stretched to attack. The heat of the lava is combined with an attack, and its power is very powerful. However, a faint black mist emerged around Arthur. One of the two abilities obtained from Seal. The power of withering has the ability to decompose. The faint black mist seemed to be harmless to humans and animals, but when the red dog attacked, it fell into the piranha like a piece of fresh meat. It was eaten up in an instant. What kind of weird ability is this? Akainu was shocked. However, what made his face change even more was that the black mist gradually spread upwards along his attack. The intense heat had no effect on the eerie black fog. At this time, Akainu showed his extremely decisive side. The lava arm fell off on its own, and the moment it fell to the ground, there was not even a scum left. It's dangerous. Akainu has a palpitating appearance. If these black fogs are allowed to continue to spread, I am afraid that his main body will be in danger. Seeing Arthur walking towards the warring states step by step, he didn't know what to do for a while. And the warring states opposite Arthur immediately activated the power of the devil fruit, and dazzling golden light spread out from his body. The armed color was attached to it, like Mount Tai pressing on the top, and it slapped down. Resistance is futile. A long knife appears in Arthur's hand. The two attacks collided together, and the domineering impact caused the surrounding world to change color a little. Sengoku only felt that he had hit an impregnable mountain. No matter how much power he used, he couldn't shake it. Arthur flicked his wrist and the tip of his sword stabbed out. Burst. The long knife pierced Sengoku's palm. Then flip again. Sengoku's huge body crashed to the ground in the direction of rotation. The entire battleship trembled. The long knife in Arthur's hand was like a nail, nailing Sengoku to the deck. The armament color only increases the body's defense and attack power. It's not really invincible. It's just that I didn't encounter a force that could break it. The devil fruit's abilities faded, and Sengoku returned to its original size. It's just that he looks very embarrassed at the moment. Because of the pain, his face twitched from time to time, and looking at the arm that was penetrated, the blood slowly flowed outward. Tell me, how did you get those Honkai beasts? Arthur's gaze did not fluctuate in the slightest, staring into Sengoku's eyes. I'm not going to tell you. Sengoku's expression was serious, his eyes were solemn, and he didn't flinch at all. Really? That's great. An icy tone came out of Arthur's mouth. It's so far away just now, you shouldn't have seen how the golden lion died. Now it's time to keep your eyes open and take a good look. What are you going to do? Sengoku heard a hint of something bad in Arthur's tone. You'll soon find out. With a wave of his right hand, a huge black hole emerged from the sky. And directly below the black hole is a battleship. The black hole fell with a bang, engulfing the battleship with hundreds of square rounds of seawater. For a time, a semicircular sphere was left on the surface of the sea. It all happened in a flash of lightning. When the reaction came, a battleship and hundreds of navies disappeared. Arthur, what did you do? Sengoku's eyes were almost popping out, and there was a glint of anger in his eyes. How did those Honkai beasts appear? Arthur asked again. However, as soon as the warring states opened their mouths, another black hole fell from the sky. With less than 10 seconds between the top and bottom, the two warships disappeared between heaven and earth. At the same time there were almost 1,000 naval lives. How did those Honkai beasts appear? The tone is exactly the same, but it makes Sengoku seem to hear the most terrifying words in the world. I couldn't say anything for a while. A battleship disappeared again. Keep asking. A battleship disappeared again. Such a scene made the three yellow apes chill in their hearts. Demon Slayer order. It's indeed a demon-slaying order. Standing before them is the real devil. But they don't have the power to kill the devil. When the seventh battleship disappeared again, Sengoku seemed to wake up from a dream. It's Marshal Kong, it's Marshal Air who made me do this. He told me that there was a chest in the battleship, and when he opened it, he threw the contents into the sea. Why those monsters appeared, I don't know, I don't know. At this moment, the warring states are almost on the verge of collapse. One by one, lives disappeared in front of him. It's all because of him. Marshal, steel bones. A light flashed in Arthur's eyes, he slowly stood up, pulled out the long knife inserted in Sengoku's arm, waved his hand, and put it into the system warehouse. Let's go. Landing on Hugh Bryan cleanly, he flew in the direction of the naval headquarters. And on the deck of the battleship, Sengoku, who fell to the ground, slowly flipped his body. Bow down and kneel there. Large tears fell from their eye sockets and fell on the deck. A whimper slowly came out of his mouth. The sound is getting louder. The body bent on the deck suddenly stood upright. Ah. Ah. H. Ah. H. A loud whistling sounded higher and higher, as if it came from the soul, spreading outward for a long time. Full of powerlessness, anger, despair, desolation. Total ship collapse, reject rocks at the start. Author, Return Captain. Chapter 165. Hugh Bryan flashed in the sky. Captain, I didn't notice any Honkai along the way. AI's voice came out of the communicator. Got it, thank you for your hard work, AI-chan. Arthur sat on the couch and exhaled softly, picked up the teacup in front of him and took a sip. Shhhh, it's so bitter. As soon as he drank it in his mouth, Arthur almost threw it up. It's like tea, it's like medicine. Rita, why has your tea-making craft regressed so much? A fight with Kiana. Putting the teacup in his hand on the table, Arthur looked at Rita next to him speechlessly. Captain, this cup of tea wasn't made by Rita. Rita smiled and gestured with her eyes to Fu Hua, who was sitting opposite. Tea is bitter, but it calms the mind. Fu Hua's faint voice spat out of his mouth. Fu Hua made me tea for the first time, even if it is bitter, I will drink it. Arthur picked up the teacup in front of him again. There is a fragrance on the smell, but it is bitter to drink it. I don't know what strange things Fu Hua used to brew out. The long pain is better than the short pain. Arthur held his breath and drank it all in one go. It's a cup of no worries. After drinking this cup of tea, there are no thoughts in my mind, which leaves a word. Bitter. Captain, I find you to be a special treat. Kiana sat on Arthur's lap with an unhappy expression. At the beginning, it was the first time for people to make tea for you, Captain, but they only took a sip and fed the flowers. Seeing Kiana in front of her, Arthur pinched her little face. You should be glad I fed the flowers, otherwise you won't see me again. Arthur drank the tea made by Kiana, just a small sip. Cells all over the body are protesting violently. After a little care, he poured the tea into the flower pot next to him. As a result, within a few hours, the flowers that had been blooming slowly withered. The matter was also revealed. It took a lot of Arthur's energy to comfort Kiana. Humph, just now, Captain, you said that Fu Hua's tea is very bitter, don't you drink it too? Obviously, this incident brought back Kiana's memories. This tea is made with the help of various precious medicinal herbs. For condensing tea, it can not only block distracting thoughts and improve people's attention, but also have the effect of beautifying and strengthening the body. There's also a big glass in the kitchen, you can all drink a little. Fu Hua introduced the effects of the tea she made. Rita can prove that although this tea does not taste very good, it does have many wonderful uses. Rita said as she held a large cup in her hand and poured a glass for everyone. Alas, it's so bitter. After taking a sip, Kiana immediately opened her mouth wide and stuck out her tongue, and her little face wrinkled together. The taste is really hard to swallow. Mei Yi also frowned slightly. Captain, can you help Cier drink? In that case, please ask the captain to help Brnya drink too. Brnya and Seal approached Arthur with teacups in both hands. Arthur rolled his eyes. You two should drink it by yourself. Even if you look at me with such a cute expression, I won't help you drink. Seeing that Arthur didn't help, Brnya and Seal immediately launched a cute attack. Captain, actually Seal and Sister Brnya just bought a pair of fruit aprons yesterday. Seal lowered her head and said with some embarrassment. Ahem, apron or something, I don't really care at all. The main thing is Fu Hua's tea, which I like to drink. Leave it to me, both of you. Arthur took the teacup from Bernier and Seal and drank it all with great pleasure. Ah! You are cunning. Kiana looked at the scene in a daze, and felt a pang of chagrin in her heart. Ai-chan, how long will it take to arrive at the Navy headquarters? Fiddling with Kiana's twin ponytails with both hands to increase attack speed, Arthur asked Ai. At the current speed of Hyperion, it takes 3 hours, and full speed can reduce the time by 1/3. Then full speed ahead. The appearance of Honkaimon in the world of pirates made Arthur feel a little unusual. So it's important to figure out the ins and outs of this. That's why Arthur's performance is a little eager. Sitting on the sofa, I wanted to wait patiently, but a feeling of discomfort came from my body. Are you feeling hot? Arthur's words left everyone a little confused. Captain, are you suggesting that we can wear less? Hearing Rita's answer, Arthur was stunned. I'm not kidding, aren't you really feeling hot? Seriously confirming Arthur's expression, it seemed that he was really not teasing them, and couldn't help but shake his head. It's because of the tea. At this time, Fu Hua spoke and stood up from the sofa. 1 cup of tea a day is enough, and you drank 3 cups in a row, Captain, just now. After Fu Hua's explanation, Arthur understood. There are so many requests for attention. Let's go, Captain, go to the training room, and you'll probably be back to normal in an hour. If you sit there, it will take a long time. Fu Hua said and took the lead towards the training room. I wanted to take a good rest, but it seems impossible. Arthur also got up from the couch. It was as if a fire had ignited in his heart, and he couldn't rest there leisurely. Training room. Arthur and Fu Hua stood opposite each other. Let's get moving. Fu Hua said and began to slowly move his whole body. Do you have to do this before every training session? Arthur blinked. Yes, a person can only do a few simple activities. Fu Hua nodded. We're 2 of us now, so I'll help you. Arthur said with a dodge behind the glitz and crouched down. First of all, this leg must be fully moved, otherwise there will be cramps, which will be bad. Arthur said and gently pressed Fu Hua's ankle. The knee is also very important, after all, it exists as a bearing. Suddenly attacked, Fu Hua wanted to resist, but he didn't know why. It was as if the whole body was frozen in place, and it was impossible to move. Of course, this was not a small trick performed by Arthur, but Fu Hua did not expect Arthur to start directly, and his whole body was stiff and unable to move. This made Arthur even more reckless. Look at you, you still said you want to fight me, how can you be so stiff? I'll give you a full body massage. The shoulders are here too, you have to rub them more. Arthur descended his neck and drew a semicircle back to his place. 1 left and 1 right down to the waist. It then flows to the back of the spine and descends to the tail. Fu Hua only felt the electric current pass through his body, and the cells in his whole body were cheering. The feeling of pleasure made her forget to think for a while. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Total ship collapse, reject rocks at the start. Author, Return Captain. Chapter 166. Captain, where's Fu Hua? Seeing that Arthur was the only one who came out, Kiana couldn't help but look left and right and asked. Fu Hua, it may take a while to come out. Arthur said as a picture flashed through his mind. It was when he left, and a figure in the training room was lying on the ground, sweating profusely, with a misty look in his eyes. There are still remnants of on the hands. Slowly recovering, and then tidying up a little, I'm afraid it will take about an hour. Captain, your smile is suspicious. An inexplicable glint flashed in Rita's gaze. Aha! Arthur snorted. Ai-chan, what's going on now? Expect to arrive in less than an hour. Hmm. Arthur nodded and sat down on the couch. After resting for a while, Fu Hua appeared in front of everyone. It's just that Fu Hua at this time looks a little different from usual. She glared at Arthur viciously. Outsiders feel like they're flattering. The confusion in his eyes has not yet dissipated. Huh, Fu Hua, why did you change your clothes? Kiana scratched her head. She clearly remembered that Fu Hua didn't seem to be wearing this before. Because I was going to fight next, I changed my costume. As he spoke, he couldn't help but glance at Arthur again. Let her do that with her hands, her clothes will become crumpled and stained, and it will naturally be impossible to continue wearing them. But your last outfit is also very suitable for combat. Looking at Kiana's current state, it seems that she wants to break the casserole and ask to the end. Fu Hua was a little speechless for a while. Kiana, you just made some dessert, would you like to try it? Rita will always show up at the right time. Okay. As soon as she heard about the food, Kiana's attention was instantly drawn to it. Fu Hua breathed a sigh of relief and nodded gratefully at Rita. Rita smiled in response. It's beautiful too. Hearing Arthur's words, Fu Hua snorted coldly, obviously with some small emotions. After all, it's with some compulsion, so naturally I won't be happy. Captain, we still have 10 minutes to arrive. AI's voice came from the communicator. At the same time, in the Navy headquarters, countless navies have been in action long ago. Watching Arthur leave, Pheasant reports the situation to Cyborg. Inside the Marshal's office, Cyborg frowned and paced back and forth. I really didn't expect that even the last resort would be easily settled. Arthur's pirates, where are they sacred? Through the description of the phone insect Pheasant, the general situation has been mastered. In fact, for those Honkai beasts, the steel bone sky is only half understood. And the box that Sengoku brought was also sent to him by the world government before leaving. My old bones look like it's time to move. There was a resolute look on the old face of the steel bones. In any case, the pirates must not be allowed to do whatever they want in their naval headquarters. As soon as he got the news, he had already ordered the deployment to be made. Even if you can't beat it, at least you can resist it for a while. But imagination and reality are often the opposite. At this time, in the middle of the sky, Hugh Bryan can already see the figure of the naval headquarters on the big screen. AI-chan, the Hyperion cannon is ready to be charged. Okay, Captain. The Hyperion guns were so powerful that they had no problem destroying an island. But Arthur, of course, will not really destroy the naval headquarters completely. It's just a dismount. Let them know that any resistance will be futile. If you want to survive, you can only cooperate obediently. Arthur's gaze was looking ahead. On the screen, the deployment of the Navy headquarters can be seen at a glance. Countless navies stood outside, densely forming a beautiful landscape. And in the wide square ahead, phalanxes were made up of cannons. Such a firepower configuration is naturally very dangerous if it is facing an oncoming pirate ship. But Arthur was flying in the sky. Whether the range of these shells can be reached or not is still a matter of opinion. In addition to intelligence, air supremacy is also very important to the success or failure of a war. If you control the sky, you will truly become the master of war. The Hyperion cannon is fully charged in 10 seconds. AI's crisp voice came back around. 10, 9, 8. Within Hyperion, everyone was staring at the countdown on the screen. Let's let this cannon open a new chapter. Arthur muttered to himself. 3, 2, 1. Hyperion main gun. Launch. Outside the headquarters of the Navy, Hugh Bryan flying in the sky can already be seen with the naked eye. In the face of this unfamiliar battleship, everyone was a little puzzled. Report to the Marshal of the Air, a UFO was found in the sky. Hearing the Navy's report, Steelbone Kong immediately walked out, his head slightly raised. Is this what the report says will fly to the battleship? As soon as a look of clarity flashed in his eyes, he felt a wave of energy fluctuations. In front of the battleship, energy converges, like the sun in the sky. The furious energy makes one feel the breath of destruction from afar. It's... Steelbone's face gradually revealed a look of surprise. The dazzling light in the sky burst out in an instant, piercing the space and blasting straight towards the middle of the naval headquarters. Quick, flash, on. As the attack approached, Steelbone's eyes slowly widened, and his face was shocked. The loud roar that blurted out was instantly drowned out by the roaring explosion. The explosion spread outward from a single point in an instant, engulfing 1/5 of the island's area in an instant. The dazzling light radiated out, not far behind the sun in the sky. Time seems to stand still at this moment. Next second. Rumble. After a brief silence, a huge shockwave exploded in the center and spread outward. Wherever the shockwave passed, everything was flattened. Arthur can be seen clearly from above. A huge mushroom cloud rises from the center of the island. Dust spread in all directions, covering the entire island with lightning speed. The previous chapter was released too early, otherwise the later paragraph could have been seen by more people. It's too late to modify this point after being reviewed, so it can only be deleted, otherwise it won't be able to withstand a one-day ban at once. After writing this plot, if you find a chance, you will have a big chapter. Total ship collapse, reject rocks at the start. Author, Return Captain. Chapter 167. The headquarters of the Navy, which was originally a place of justice and solemnity. At the moment, however, it was overwhelmed by the aftermath of the explosion. A huge mushroom cloud rises in the center of the island and lingers for a long time. A powerful shockwave swept through everything around it. Countless navies flew out like kites with broken strings. Above in Hyperion, Arthur watched the scene with a stunned gaze. Ai-chan, the power of this blow is a little too great. You're going to blow up the whole island. Arthur just wanted to show off the sheer power he had. But under this blow, there were still a few people in the Navy headquarters who survived. Captain, the power of the Hyperion main gun is so great. And that's just normal level. AI's tone carried some small grievances. Okay. Hopefully, people aren't all dead. For the power of the Hyperion's main gun, Arthur also saw it for the first time. Very powerful indeed. But it is clear that Arthur somewhat underestimated the tenacious vitality of these navies. After a few minutes, the dust that had enveloped the naval headquarters began to dissipate. It reveals its current appearance. The original majestic and tall naval headquarters has completely disappeared. In its place, it was a ruined and desolate place. The powerful explosion directly lifted the entire turf. Especially the center of the explosion. A huge pit emerges. This was where the headquarters of the Navy was located. And now it's a bare place. The explosion spread outward in a radial shape, leaving traces on the ground. On the edge of the island, you can also see some remnants of ruins. The steel bones and empty body were armed and domineering, and he gradually converged, and stood on the edge of the giant pit in embarrassment. His gaze swept blankly around. If it weren't for some traces around to prove that this is the headquarters of the Navy, I would have thought that I had suddenly come to another place. What has become like this? Cyborg muttered to himself. The world in front of me has become a little unreal. In the dust, some lightly wounded navies were helping those who were badly wounded. The earth-shattering cry of the past is gone, and all that remains is a dreariness. I didn't mean to cause this situation, but I don't apologize. A figure descended from the sky and landed in front of the steel skeleton. Looking at the steel skeleton in front of him, the position seemed to be on the verge of an explosion. But even so, the shock wave of the explosion and the resulting high temperature were still stubbornly resisted. It's just that he has multiple burns all over his body, and he looks very embarrassed. He. Looking at Arthur in front of him, Steelben didn't have the slightest interest in wanting to do it at the moment. Perhaps, from the very beginning, the Navy was your enemy, which was the biggest mistake. The Steelbones are no longer as high-spirited as they once were. At this moment, it is like an old man in the twilight, which makes people feel a trace of sourness. I got news from Sengoku that you should know something about the contents of the battleship and the box. Arthur will not forget the purpose of his visit. It's the government of the world. Without too much hesitation, Steelbone said it directly. At the same time as the order to slay demons, there was also a large box. After that, I believe you have already guessed a probability. That's all I can say. You can guess how things will develop after that. Arthur nodded. His eyes swept around, and from time to time he could hear bursts of crying out in pain. Although we are on opposite sides now, hopefully in the future we will be friends rather than enemies. Arthur said with a wave of his right hand. Small porcelain vases are neatly arranged in front of the steel bones. If you look at it, there are 500 bottles. These are the true healing elixirs, and as long as they are not dead, they can be revived. Arthur turned to leave. Steel Gakong looked at the small porcelain vase in front of him, and a look of emotion appeared in his decadent eyes. A glimmer of light flickered out. And Arthur also decided on his next destination. The Red Continent, the Chambord Islands, the Mary Joy known as the Holy Land. World Government Headquarters. Quantum Sea. It's like a sea, but there are countless worlds to bubble in. If the universe is seen as a glass of water, then there are countless identical cups around him. Let the water in the cup spill outwards and flow along the walls of the cup, creating a small puddle in the middle of the table. This puddle does not belong to any one cup, but every drop of water in the puddle can come from any one cup. There is indeed such a magical dimension between parallel worlds, and this puddle is called the Quantum Sea. Theoretically, you can reach another universe by crossing the Quantum Sea. On a floating block of space in the Quantum Sea, the branches of a tall blue-leaved tree that shade the sky and the sun develop in the space of the Quantum Sea. This is the tree of imaginary numbers. It is the birthplace of countless worlds and the birthplace of all truths and laws. The tree of imaginary numbers is rooted in the Quantum Sea, and together they form worlds. Time flows on the trunk of the tree of imaginary numbers, like a canopy, branching out into an infinite world. Each branch is pregnant with a world, and most of these worlds are imaginary spaces, and by chance there will be real numbers of living spaces. Arthur's mind flashed with information about the Quantum Sea and the tree of imaginary numbers. Could it be because of me that I indirectly brought Honkai to this world? Questions flashed through my mind. And he's now on his way to chasing questions. In this world, besides him, there are other people who have the power of Honkai. Use a high concentration of Honkai crystals to mutate the creatures of this world and become Honkaimon. Such a move, Arthur believes, is not something that ordinary people can do. It is necessary to have a good understanding of the power of Honkai to be able to do this. Who the hell is it? During the voyage, Arthur was unusually quite composed. Let Rita and the others be a little uncomfortable. And at the same time, in some dimly lit room, a picture appeared on a huge screen. Hubilion's figure flashed across the frame. In front of the screen, a figure is shrouded in shadows, making it impossible to see his face. We're finally going to meet. This moment has been too long waited. A faint sound echoed around them, then fell silent. Total ship collapse, reject rocks at the start. Author, return Captain. Chapter 168. Captain, you can already see the red Earth continent. Within Hugh Bryan, Arthur's eyes were also fixed on the screen. It's back here again after a long time. However, the mood is very different. Is there any smell of Honkai here? Ai-chan didn't detect it? Arthur nodded. Things seemed a little more complicated than he had imagined. There was not a trace of collapse detected. Is it not in itself, or is it too well hidden? No matter how much speculation is made now, it is useless. Go ahead and head to Maryjoy. Hubarian's speed slowed down and flew towards Maryjoy. At the same time, within the holy land of Maryjoy, a figure leisurely strolls through the surrounding scenery. The man wears a white shirt with rolled-up sleeves and a purple tunic with gray trousers and brown boots. He is about 20 years old, fair-skinned, and has a beautiful appearance. Blonde hair and blue eyes, long hair tied into a single ponytail draped over the left shoulder. If Arthur saw this man, he would have been shocked by his presence. Otto Apocalypse. They don't belong to this world, but they exist in the same world as Kiana. A world of collapse. And behind Otto, the 5 old stars who are now the highest power in the world government accompany him. It looks quite respectful. If this scene is seen by others, I am afraid that they will be shocked and unable to say anything. The time should be coming. Otto's slow steps stopped, and the 5 old stars behind him also stopped. Master Otto, what are your next instructions? Among the 5 old stars, one of them took a step forward and lowered his posture. The man in front of him is now a spokesman for God. Its status is equal to that of their true leader, I'm. In other words, the current world government is completely in the hands of Otto. There's no need to prepare with much fanfare. Just to meet someone who should have met a long time ago. Otto said as he walked towards Maryjoy. The gaze is deep and far-reaching. Captain, we're here. Hyperion was suspended in mid-air. And in front of them, there were steps as white as jade. At the end of the stairs there is a large door. And behind this gate is Maryjoy. Captain, someone has appeared. At the end of the stairs, several figures can be seen on the screen. Love-chan, zoom in. The screen zooms in, and the face of the human figure is clearly visible. Oh! Seeing a faint smile on his face and his eyes looking at their figures, Arthur's pupils contracted slightly. Otto's appearance surprised Rita and the others. At this time, it seems that all the mysteries have been answered. If it's Otto, it's normal to be so familiar with Honkai. But why is Otto here? Since it's already here, let's come out. Otto looked at Hyperion above, a faint voice echoing around. Captain. All eyes were on Arthur, waiting for her next command. Let's go, let's see. Hugh Brian descended from the sky to a certain height, the hatch opened, and Arthur took the lead, and one by one the figures jumped down. Stepping on the white steps, Arthur and his party stood opposite Otto. Why are you here? Arthur was the first to throw out his own doubts. When I saw you, I was even more convinced of what he said. Otto's gaze swept over Kiana and the others, a faint smile with a hint of loneliness. Just. It seems a little too early. This sentence seems to be addressed to Arthur, and it seems to be talking to himself. Then I immediately sorted out my mood. Again put on an elegant smile. My name is Otto Apocalypse. Although we are meeting for the first time, I've been watching you for a long time, Arthur. When did it start? I guess it's after the end of the Locks era. That's when I got here. Come to think of it, it's been a hard journey. Otto said to himself, but he completely explained the doubts in Arthur's heart. Hearing Otto's words, a light flashed in Arthur's eyes. You came here using the 1,000 realms of one. Although it was an inquiring tone, Arthur was 90% sure. The 1,000 worlds is a key of the gods similar to a locomotive made by the core of the lawgiver of the void in the last era. With its 0 power rating, it can open the way to the imaginary tree. This is the only way to explain it. Bang bang bang. Otto clapped his hands and praised the features with a face. Yes, it's a journey that you don't want people to go through again. A flash of memory flashed in his eyes, and then he returned to normal. But luckily I'm here. I saw you at the same time. After a short conversation, Arthur had already understood the general idea, but he had one last question. Why are you here? That's Arthur's question. Otto's words are very simple. It is like taking a bus, taking 1,000 worlds to get here, but the danger is unimaginable. And the main thing is that Otto's arrival must have been tacitly approved. Ta in Otto's mouth before. If Arthur is not mistaken, the so-called Ta must refer to the will of Honkai. My graduates are all pursuing one purpose. Resurrect Karen. At this point, Otto's face became very serious, and he looked at Arthur with a solemn gaze. And according to Ta's prompts, you have such abilities. At first I didn't believe it, but now. Otto's gaze swept over Kiana and the others again. Now I'm convinced. Work with me, Arthur. Otto said and held out his right hand. Help me resurrect Karen, the whole world is yours. It's not just this one world. At this point, everything is clear. Otto has spent his life resurrecting Kalian, and for that, he can come to some kind of agreement with Honkai's will. I traveled through the universe and came here on 1,000 worlds. It is indeed a touching and heartfelt story. But what does this have to do with him? Karen is also one of the Valkyries. According to normal logic, it is true that Arthur can summon her. But if summoned and given to Otto? How could such a thing happen to him? Arthur sighed softly. Otto, you're not the first person to ask me to work with. Maybe it won't be the last. But the answer I'm giving you is the same. Sorry, I refuse. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Total ship collapse, reject rocks at the start. Author, Return Captain. Chapter 169. Sorry, I refuse. The voice is soft, but there is no doubt about it. This made Otto's elegant face on the other side change slightly. His expression gradually converged, and finally he became expressionless, looking at Arthur calmly. What reason do you have to refuse? What you get is 2 worlds. Since Otto has put forward the conditions, he naturally has a certain amount of confidence. Through this period of observation, he found that Arthur was a person who did not show much on the surface. But in fact, he is also a self-respecting and unwilling to be subservient. This can be seen from the construction of the island. That was a manifestation of Arthur's ambition. It has to be said that Otto is smart. Just a few things like Arthur's mental touch. Now, he has sent 2 worlds to Arthur, and it stands to reason that he should not refuse. 2 worlds are indeed a very tempting bargaining chip. Then why? Otto was stopped by Arthur in the middle of his speech. But what is it compared to Kiana and Karen? What's more, if I want this world, who can stop it? Arthur's words were sonorous and powerful, and the space around him was shaken. There's no room for negotiation. Otto was clearly not giving up. This may be his only chance. Nope. Arthur's answer was still quite firm. On this kind of issue, he will not make the slightest concession. There was a sudden silence in the surroundings. The solemn atmosphere began to strengthen between the two. You just said, if you want to get the world, and who can stop it? For a long time, faint words came out of Otto's mouth. The head was slightly bowed. Do you think everything would have gone so well if I had been here? There was already a hint of threat in the flat tone. Otto, this sentence coming out of the mouth of one of your puppets is really not convincing at all. Arthur's eyes shone with a light that saw through everything. What do you mean? It was quite rare for Kiana to be able to endure such a long time before asking questions. But Rita next to her shook her head gently at Kiana. This matter is between Arthur and Otto, and it is better for the others not to get involved. Otto, Should I say you are cautious, or are you cowardly? He even used a puppet to talk to me. Arthur didn't notice it at first, but slowly sensed something was wrong with Otto in front of him. Otto standing in front of him was not Otto himself. It's a puppet made of soul steel. It is precisely because Otto has mastered such a technique that his consciousness can switch back and forth between the puppets, so as to achieve the goal of immortality. The reason why this is so is precisely to cope with the current situation. Otto Apocaris, wielder of the first divine key, the void treasure. The key of the first god, the key of revelation, the void is a weapon crafted by the core of the first lawgiver of the above eras, the lawgiver of reason. The normal state is a golden hexahedron, which can be turned into a fluid. Weapons and items that can be copied to the user to understand the construction principle are the same as the divine key, but the copied divine key is nowhere near as good as the real divine key. Inside is an almost infinitely extended knowledge space, which stores the knowledge of the previous civilization collected by the lawgiver of reason, and this knowledge has been preserved with the core of the lawgiver with the particularity of the lawgiver of reason's ability. The ability is the same as Brynja's. Once you have fully understood the interpretation of a thing, you can reproduce it again in your own power. Whether it's an automatic rifle, a giant battleship, or even a god's key, anything that knows its mechanics and how it works can be reproduced out of thin air. It can be said that it is quite a perverted ability. The more knowledge you have, the more power you will exert yourself. When the entire universe is parsed one day, it is not impossible to replicate it. This shows the power of the lawgiver of reason. Mimic Judas's oath. 0 power rating liberated. Charismatic enchantment. Judas, like the lawgiver of restraint, has the ability to neutralize Honkai and weaken other forms of energy to varying degrees. Its 0 power rating is a divine grace barrier that rivals the Lorist's abilities, creating an enchantment that negates Honkai energy for 1 minute. Now that the negotiations have broken down, the second package can only be used. As for the strength of Arthur and his party, Otto couldn't be clearer. As soon as he came up, he directly put the ultimate. Even the lawgiver, within this divine grace barrier, cannot use any power for a while. Otto knew that all he could do was for a moment. And all he wanted was this moment, when Arthur and his party were defenseless. Mimicry, Yudu-chan. Otto came to Arthur, his body covered in illusory feathers. Through the void myriad treasure, it is similar to the ability to manipulate brain signals and control consciousness. Tell me how I can resurrect Karen. That's all Otto wants. The moment Otto made his move, Arthur was already on guard. The vanishing power around him didn't panic him in the slightest. Although his strength has been greatly weakened within this charismatic barrier, it has not yet reached the point where he has no power to fight back. But Yuduchan's strength made him feel a little troublesome. Consciousness blurred and seemed to be stripped away. Such a feeling comes and goes quickly. The spirit shook for a while, and soon returned to normal. Consciousness returned, and the question Otto was asked. Captain. The people around me seemed to sense that something was wrong. Although the strength was greatly weakened, it still attacked like Otto. Fu Hua came to Arthur with an arrow step, and kissed him directly without hesitation. Arthur suddenly felt a surge of energy explode in his brain. Stared at Fu Hua in front of him. How's it going, are you awake? Seeing Arthur looking at her blankly, Fu Hua also noticed that his behavior just now seemed to be a little different. Don't think about it, if you are hit by Yuduchan, you must be disturbed by the outside world to quickly wake up. Outside interference. It turned out that Fu Hua had used that method just now in order to wake him up. Transmit energy into his body and get rid of the control of the feather dust illusion. At this moment, Arthur was really glad that he had hesitated for a moment. Hesitated to pit Otto, so he maintained the posture of being hit by Yuduchan. I got the enjoyment of this Chitaka. This wave is not a loss. I'm completely conscious. Arthur looked excited, as if he had been beaten with chicken blood. This Otto, even if he is a puppet, will fight until he can't find the north. Get out of the way, let me come. Arthur shouted, and the steps he had just taken immediately stopped, and his eyes looked at Fu Hua. It's a good feeling that we'll have the opportunity to talk about it. After finishing speaking, it shot out like an arrow from the string in an instant, leaving him standing in place with a faint ruddy Fu Hua on his face. The armament color is attached to the fist. A punch was punched in the face as Kiana dodged Kiana's attack on Otto. Boom! Otto, suspended in mid-air, fell to the ground like a meteor. A huge crater was smashed. Divine Grace enchantment, Otto is also a surprise. Among the people present, in a one-on-one situation, he may be able to hold on for a while, but there are so many people. It's not enough to see at all. Arthur's figure also fell from the sky and fell directly into the dust. Bang bang bang. Fist to meet, no, or rather, fist to steel. A crashing sound came from inside. Soon the power of the Divine Grace enchantment dissipated. Boom. A punch blasted out, like a missile exploding, and a powerful shock wave spread outward. In the dust, Arthur stepped out of it. Captain, where's Otto? Rita's eyes flashed with doubt. There's not even scum left. Arthur waved his hand and looked at the 5 old stars on the side. These 5 old guys have been motionless since just now. It doesn't feel normal. Total ship collapse, reject rocks at the start. Author, return captain. Chapter 170. In an unknown area, it is quiet and dim, and it is inaccessible to ordinary people. Through the faint light, you can see it faintly. The nutrition pods stand side by side. And in these nutrition bins, there is an exact same face soaked. Otto Apocalypse. Such a scene still looks a little scary. And in a certain nutrition cabin, Otto, who was originally stationary, moved his fingers imperceptibly. Pictures flashed in my mind. Otto Apocalypse was born in Vienna in the world of Honkai. He was the 3rd son of Nicholas Apocalypse, the head of the Apocalypse family, one of the most powerful Providence families at the time. Although Otto inherited the family's excellent mind, he was despised by his family because of his frailty and lack of fighting ability. Otto loved inventions, but his family disapproved of his actions, and Otto felt abandoned by everyone. And all this, redeemed when he meets a man. Karin Kislana. One sentence let Otto know that he was also recognized. This recognition is Otto's obsession. As a childhood sweetheart, Otto's feelings for Karen continued to rise steadily, and after inadvertently having a marriage contract with Kalian, it exploded, but because of Kalian's dullness, Otto's unrequited love has always been. Later, the Mandate of Heaven carried out an eastward crusade in order to expand its power, and Kalian, who had the largest combat power at that time, was defeated by the Red Kite Immortals. The Eastern Crusade failed, and the Mandate of Heaven suffered great losses. To compensate for the losses of the war, Mandate of Heaven issued indulgences, which caused great pain among the population. When Karen understood all this, she put on a mask and became a monster thief. In an accident, Karen breaks into the laboratory of the Destiny Research Black Box. The brutal human experiments shattered the perfect image of destiny in Kalian's heart. At this time, the justice of the Kislana family allowed Karen to stop the experiment and escape from the destiny with the black box. But he was soon brought back by the Mandate of Heaven and sentenced to death. During Karen's execution, Otto unleashed the Honkai Beast to create chaos and rescue Karen, but Karen, who cared about the people, decided to lure the Honkai Beast away, and when she protected the people, the weakened Karen died at the hands of the Honkaimon. The image in his mind lingered on the moment when Karen was killed by the Honkaimon, and Otto's closed eyes opened instantly. The confusion in his eyes flashed away, and then turned into anger. Arthur, you're really ruthless. Although his body was destroyed, the pain seemed to be engraved in his soul. Otto's handsome face looked a little distorted. It took a long time to calm down. The hatch opened, and the nutrient solution in the nutrient chamber flowed to the ground. Otto stepped out slowly, a faint light reflecting his perfect body. "Take the clothes that have been prepared next to you and put them on." At this time, a figure quietly came. "I am the leader of the Draconians, the master behind the world government, and the master of the Void Throne. This figure, shrouded in black robes, is the true master of this world. You failed." There is not the slightest emotion in the faint words. "Humph, it's too early to say I'm failing." Otto snorted coldly, and it was obvious that the resentment in his heart had not been eliminated. Brush. Drawing the long sword at his waist, the icy light flickered in the dim space. Imu's sword was pointed at Otto. "Although you are a person from outside the world, and we belong to a cooperative relationship, the price of betraying me is a weight that you cannot bear." For Otto, Im has a lot of wariness in his heart. This man is extremely intelligent, but also calm and crazy. Such talents are the most terrifying. Unscrupulous means to achieve the end. Looking at the long sword in front of him, Otto's gaze changed slightly, and then a smile appeared on his face. "That's nature." "I hope so." Retracting his sword, Im turned to leave. "I'm not going to give up, Arthur." Otto's gaze shone with persistence. "Maybe I'm already a little stunned." Karen's death led to the blackening of Otto, who became the head of the Apocalypse family after assassinating his father and brother, succeeding him as Bishop of the Mandate of Heaven. Since then, I've been working hard to resurrect Karen. To this end, he did not hesitate to use anyone to betray the whole world and cooperate with Honkai. From this point of view, Otto is indeed a pretty good man. But it's a pity that the falling flowers are intentionally ruthless. Otto's approach was completely against Karen's wishes. One person can harm the innocent for the sake of another. A person can sacrifice himself for the sake of an innocent person. How can such two people be together? At the same time, in the holy place of Mary Joyana, the group browsed through it as if it were sightseeing. "Captain, the scenery here is very good." Kiana glanced around, big eyes blinking. "It's really nicely furnished, simple but noble." Reeton next to her nodded sympathetically. "It's a holy place anyway, and it's supposed to have a little style," Arthur said as he looked at the 5 old stars who had been following him. "These 5 people have not raised any objections from the beginning to the present. Even the visit to Mary Joya is honestly leading the way ahead." This made Arthur very confused. The purpose of this visit to the world government is twofold. The first one has already been resolved. I know who is behind the scenes. Although he did not have an eternal future, he would not be blind at the very least. And the second? Arthur turned and walked in front of the 5 old stars. "What do you command?" Seeing Arthur coming, the 5 old stars saluted respectfully at the same time. At the very beginning, the 5 of them had already received orders from Imu. If Otto fails, then do not resist. For the time being, treat Arthur as a precious guest. As long as the requests made are not particularly excessive, try to accommodate them. There was no way, Arthur's combat power had made it impossible for them to fight head-on with a brutal attitude. "There's an announcement that I want your world government to announce. These 5 people are so well behaved, Arthur is really a little uncomfortable. I thought the world government would fight him for the sake of face. In this way, it is much simpler." Unexpectedly, not only did Otto come out with the variable, but the attitude of the 5 old stars was also different from what he imagined. "It's very simple, just follow this release," Arthur said, taking out a piece of paper and handing it over. After taking the paper and opening it, seeing the content on it, the 5 old stars glanced at each other, and they didn't know how to answer for a while. "If it is really as stated above." Then there will be an island that is completely independent of the world government. If such a thing were to be started, the consequences would be unimaginable. If you have any problems, we can solve them by force. Seeing the 5 people looking embarrassed, indifferent words came out of Arthur's mouth. No, no problem. We'll make an announcement right away. If it really starts, just the 5 of them will not be enough to watch. Very well, then we'll be staying soon. Trouble told Otto. Let him be honest and not make small moves behind his back. Don't think that consciousness can't kill just because you can switch back and forth between bodies. It really may off, even if he goes to another world, he will be completely eliminated. With these words, Arthur beckoned Kiana and them to leave. A war came to an end. The next day, one by one, the news spread all over the sea. The demon-slaying order launched by the Navy was counter-killed. The headquarters of the Navy was completely destroyed. If these 2 pieces of news have been shockingly closed, then the statement of the world government has made all countries look sideways. The independence of an island is not like the sea thieves who claim the land as their own. In essence, this is plundering the resources of the world government. The Navy, of course, has the right to recapture. The meaning of independence is that although the island is small, it already exists on an equal footing with the world government. Are 2 completely different concepts. The reason why Arthur made such an extra step was for better trade. Otherwise, like last time, as long as the world government releases a little rumor, those people will run away in fear. Coming twice in 3 days is not what Arthur wants to see.